Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Another win and a night that Sonny came home. I mean, what a perfect night in a way. Well, apart from one tiny little yellow card thing. But I thought, you know what? It was entirely fitting that on a night with Sonny there, that Xavi Simons and Mohamed Kudus were Tottenham's goal scorers. There was another goal, but it wasn't a Tottenham goal. It was actually a landmark goal, the other goal, which we'll talk about, but it was not scored by a Spurs player. But I thought it was quite fitting that Xavi and Kudus were the ones who scored the goals because, let's be honest, the Dutchman and the Ghanaian are really going to have to be the fulcrum that Thomas Frank uses to lever this kind of Spurs. I don't know why you do that when you're leaving. I guess that's kind of what you do. Looks weird off camera. Sorry about that. But it is going to have to be what he's going to have to do. They are going to be the stars, essentially. He's going to have to warp this attack around, create, build, construct, probably better than warp, but mould, let's use. They are the creative stars in that attack, aren't they? While we're waiting for other people to kind of come back. That's the exciting thing, isn't it? You think about those two players throwing a Madison, throwing a Kulusevski, throwing a Solanke, and it's like, ooh, but it's just like an attack I don't know if we'll ever see it. It just would be an incredible quintet, that would be. I love the fact that the bond between Xavi and Kudus is growing. You can see it in each passing game, and I don't think it's any coincidence that after struggling to get a shot on target at all in 4 games, 4 first halves in a row, Spurs have managed to get both men in the starting lineup in the last 2 games, and lo and behold, they've had 31 shots at goal, 17 on target across 2 matches. It's almost like, hello, could you not have done that a long time ago? I get that Xavi had to adapt to a league he's never been used to before, but I'm sorry, there's definitely some of those games he could have started. Fulham, I'm looking at you. So, I mean, even just those 2 games alone, obviously Spurs scored 5 goals, 2 clean sheets as well, because they're concentrating the ball at the other end of the pitch, which is always a help. I think it was first back-to-back win since mid-September. First consecutive clean sheet since August, I think, as well. It shows almost in a way, and I know that they were a funny side, Slavia. They were not obviously top level. God, I sound like Thomas Frank. Top level opposition, but they were dangerous. They were good on the counter-attack. They had some fast players. They pressed in this really aggressive man-to-man style, and Vicario still had to make 4 saves. But I do wonder sometimes if the old adage, attack is the best form of defence, purely because it keeps the ball away from your own goal. Maybe the last 2 games show that with 2 clean sheets. I just thought, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Xavi's Instagram post after the game. It had a very simple caption underneath, sit and enjoy. And it's a bit like, yes, that's the point. You know, Spurs fans in the last 2 games have finally been able to do exactly that. Just sit and enjoy watching Tottenham on the whole. I mean, that was, I know we talk about the horrendous home form in the Premier League, but that was 23 games unbeaten now in Europe at home since 2020. It's just mad. Absolutely mad how different that is. I mean, you could argue differing levels of opponents, perhaps. It's across all competitions. So that's got Champions League games in there as well. It's got Europa League. It's got Conference League. But I did feel like sit and enjoy was exactly what we were able to do. Talking of sitting and enjoying, a relatively low attendance figure, 47,281. You know, rows of empty seats. We could see them from where we were, especially up in the upper tiers. And bearing in mind, you know, this is a competition that Spurs have been desperate to get back into. It's been a while since we've been at the top table, yet still these empty seats. So why? And I think obviously pricing in certain areas comes into it. Yeah, 100% pricing, I think, has to come into it. Not in all. I've seen some people saying that their tickets were relatively cheap. Obviously, it's still expensive to go to a Premier League game as it is a Champions League game, but weren't awful. But certainly in some areas, it wasn't great. And I think the other issue as well, which I don't know if people are aware of, they weren't able to put the tickets on general sale because there were fears over the Slavia fans getting those tickets and getting in amongst the Spurs fans, which, you know, because it can lead to big problems. They were a noisy bunch. They did apparently request to UEFA to have the Rainbow Pride flag moved to another part of the ground. Leave you to make your own conclusions about that. Apparently it was because of the Spurs badge that was going to incite them, potentially. Okay. But, these things happen, I guess. Could be a whole section in the video itself. But yes, that was the reason it didn't go on general sale. And you would imagine, had it gone in general sale, you probably would have got maybe, another 5,000-10,000 potentially, especially with it being Sonny's official proper goodbye. But that wasn't able to happen for those kind of safety issues or potential safety issues, which is such a shame, isn't it? It's kind of like you're getting penalised by the potential of the away fans causing problems, I guess, or maybe they see the home fans would cause them, but I would imagine, it's just, they could do it with other games, definitely see it done with other games, but there you go. But yeah, back to those who were there, they got to see a pretty enjoyable display, really. Fair few, there was a chance within 36 seconds that Odegaard, great little bit of skill, got to the byline, pulled it across low. Richarlison, completely unmarked, smashes his shot against the goalkeeper's shoulder, and it deflected over, which was a new one. But there were little moments like that kind of marked throughout the game. Ultimately, it did require an own goal and 2 penalties, but it wasn't that kind of game. Their keeper made some absolutely brilliant saves, to be fair. And yeah, Xavi and Kudus were the kind of architects of a lot of the good stuff that Spurs did. And I'm going to continue this stat until it proves to be otherwise, but all of Spurs' 8 wins since Xavi arrived have come with him in the starting lineup. Again, hello! It's like not rocket science. My goodness. He wasn't, look, don't get me wrong, he wasn't as eye-catching he was against Brentford at all. But you just see they play better with him in there. He unlocks little passes. He flits between the lines. He's got that Maddison quality, like I said before, of taking the ball in a tight spot, pirouetting, getting away, and immediately taking 1 or 2 players out of it. And, especially with Slavia, like I said, playing this really fierce, strong, man-to-man pressing tactic. When you've got someone like Xavi and you've got someone like Kudus to just be able to take the ball and whip away from a player, suddenly you've got an issue, because that other man who's marking someone else is like, I'm going to have to come and help out now. Someone else is spare. It's all it needs. That's man marking is an incredibly difficult thing to kind of get around when it's done really well. But if you have the players with the ability to get away from it, it can be absolutely torn to ribbons. And that's what Xavi and Kudus did. They've got, between them this season now, 4 goals, 9 assists. 6 of those goal involvements have come in the past 4 matches as well. So you can see that Kudus is starting to get back in his groove, and Xavi is discovering his groove. Thomas Frank was asked about them and their growing confidence together, and he said, well, Mo started the season quite well, then he had a dip, and now I think the last 3 performances or something like that, it seems we've had that freshness, energy, acceleration, decisiveness in his actions. And Xavi's 2 performances have been positive, so that, of course, is so important. What I call form, sharpness, getting more in sync with each other, the team, I think all that is important. I do wonder whether it annoys him slightly when people kind of keep asking the last 2 games, like, wasn't Xavi great? Oh, hasn't he been such an important part of the side? Because it is drawing attention to the fact that he hasn't been picking him. I thought he was quite subdued yesterday, Thomas Frank, in his press conference. After Brentford, you could kind of see he was really happy beating his old side. It was a big win, one he needed. He was quite bubbly and fun in the press conference. And I felt like last night it was a little bit, I'm not saying snappy at all by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't come across as a guy who just won a Champions League game 3-0. Bearing in mind this is his first season of Champions League football. It should have been one that I felt he could have been quite excited about, but he just wasn't. There were a few answers. I got a couple that were just quite short and to the point, and like I said, not being difficult or anything like that, just almost like just want to get out of here, which maybe on us, maybe you see us lighten and you just go, okay, we're going to head off now. But I did feel like he yeah, just wasn't as into it as normal. But yeah, back to Xavi and Kudus. We know they've kind of got to play their part among with others in just filling this gaping chasm, really, that has been left at Spurs by Harry Kane's departure and, of course, now Sonny's in the last 18 months or so. We were discussing this kind of amongst reporters, in that Spurs as a club, when you think about it, it's had two superstars of the game just taken out of it. And it's such a different club that's been left behind. It is a club that is essentially almost building from the ground up again. But also, I think the not the scale of the club, but kind of I don't want to say the brand, but you know what I mean? It's standing in the game almost has dropped a bit because you've lost these two stars instantly. If you would say someone who plays for Spurs in the past, they'd say, oh, Harry Kane and Sonny. That's who they'd say. Whereas now, it'd be a bit like Christian Romero. It'd probably be maybe their go-to. And I do feel like the kind of the Tottenham Hotspur name, it just dropped a couple of rungs on the ladder. And maybe as well, having someone like Thomas Frank that's come in from a so-called kind of team further down the ladder, the rungs of the ladder in football, coming in, whereas before you kind of had the likes of Mourinho and Conte and Postecoglou was quite a showman as well. So I think his quotes, in a weird way, would naturally push the club, and of course won a trophy with them as well. And Poch, I guess, was in a similar situation to Frank, but made them into something bigger, Tottenham, and hopefully that's what happens with Thomas Frank. But we were kind of saying this. There's definitely, it's interesting to see, like, I think the interest, as a lot of us journalists, myself included, that have to write for national kind of media organisations, newspapers and everything, you definitely feel the interest has just scaled back slightly, and I'm hoping that Thomas Frank can do what Poch did and build something that becomes something bigger than it was. And, you know, like I said, they've got to fill the gap now left by Kane and Son. If they can do that, that's going to be a big part of heading towards that. And, of course, a big reminder of one of those men, Sonny, like I said, back in town. It was lovely to see him, kind of his big smiling face, his big smile back in the stadium. It was really nice the way they brought him out. About 10 minutes before kickoff, came out onto the pitch, did a great little speech. It kind of said, "I will always be Spurs," which got everyone kind of cheering. If you haven't seen it yet, I haven't actually seen it. I need to go and say I didn't have time last night to go straight and do some work, so I am going to definitely take a trip probably before the Liverpool game and see his mural on the high street, which I think he finished off with it, like his signature on it. But yeah, he was back, did this little speech, and at one point said, "You're all welcome to come back to LA," and kind of almost suggested, "Stay with me." It's like, don't say that. You'll get 47,000 or so people coming and knocking on your door and saying, "Hello, I'm here. Where should I put my bags?" But no, it was very cool to see him back, and great ovation, as you can imagine. Slavia fans were a little bit like, oh, as in we were, everyone else was a bit, because they kept doing their pre-match noise and everything, which they're very much welcome to do. They were a noisy bunch. They were very noisy after the final whistle as well, and their players went over. Anton and Kinski went over and had a little moment, and they do this thing, the players, they kind of kneel in front of them while they do these chants. But it was just like, could you let Sonny have his moment? Could you not be doing your chants really loudly right now as we're trying to hear him speak and stuff? But it was still very cool, and it all worked, and just lovely to see him back. 10 years for the club, like I said, lifted the trophy as few captains at Tottenham Hotspur have been able to do. Was in the tunnel before the game, obviously ready to come out, and he saw a few of the players. Then he went up to the director's box where he sat next to Nick Bucher, part of the New Look Lewis family power group. And then Sonny went down to the dressing room. Cue lots of funny little catch-ups that we've seen, little bits of videos. Actually, before he went down there, when he came off from his chat, he went over to Solanke, was down there. Definitely looked like he asked him about his ankle, because I saw him kind of look down and Solanke looked down as well at it. Catch up with Matters, and who else was down there? I don't think Decky was down there. There was someone else. I think it was Brandon Austin. Brandon Austin wasn't on the subs bench yesterday. And maybe he's got a little problem at the moment, but I think I just remember seeing him. But yeah, we got all these lovely little moments kind of in the dressing room and in the players' kind of corridor around their dressing room as well. We had him telling off Archie Gray for not messaging him after he'd gone, because obviously they were pretty close, weren't they, him and Ben Davies? Only for Archie Gray to say, well, you changed your number, which I'd imagine he would have an American phone now. And Sonny saying, you could have messaged me on Instagram and stuff like that. We had Richarlison being very Richarlison-like. There was one moment when he goes up to I think it must be a photo of all the players. I think it was on the team bus in the parade after the Europa League final. And Richarlison, you could just hear him in his kind of high-pitched voice going like, who's this legend? Who's this legend? And Sonny comes over and he goes like, oh, there's legend number 1, there's legend number 2, legend number 3, 4. And he goes like, and Richarlison's going, yeah, but what about that guy? Like, what legend is he? What number legend? And Sonny goes, 0 legend. It's very funny. And when he first sees, I think he's lying down and just getting like their post-match massages that they get. And he said something to him like, I think Richarlison says to him like, kind of along the lines of, you should be thankful you won the Europa League because of me. Richarlison did. And Sonny goes, no, that was Brennan. It's just funny little stuff like that. It's lovely to see kind of behind the scenes of this and just how much they loved having him back. And yeah, he looked all Hollywood. He looked all very much, I mean, he's always a very stylish man anyway, but he very much looked like a man that is now a bit of an LA star over there in MLS. Kudus actually said what Sonny said when he addressed the team in the dressing room, and he said keep going. It's a long season, a long journey, and focus and keep doing what we're doing. He's a legend here. I wish we'd played together a bit longer because I only had a few games with him pre-season, but it's really good to have him here. He's a big example to all of us here in how to represent the club and do our best for the club. It was a pleasure to have him in the dressing room and talk a little bit with him. I'm just sad we didn't play together, but that's football. It was nice to see him. And Xavi said a few words because obviously Xavi left after Xavi joined after Sonny left, didn't he? And he said, I didn't meet Sonny personally before, and now just a little bit tonight, but he's a big legend for the club, and it's a real pleasure for me to take his number and build my own legacy. So I'm really happy to meet him. I forgot about that last night. Of course, he has the number 7 now, and I think Sonny would have enjoyed watching Xavi play in his number. And I'd also like the fact that, you might remember me saying this in the past, that Sonny was very big on young players who came up from the academy to train with the first team, of making a real kind of effort to make them involved, feel involved, talk to them, and get the other first team players to kind of make sure they were settled and comfortable in the first team environment. And he was really big on that. And from what I understand, Xavi's doing a little bit of that to a degree as well, even though he's a new arrival himself. I think he has taken quite the shine to Luca Williams-Barnett and Teenan Thompson. And apparently, from what I understand, they've really hit it off in first team training. They've got this kind of nice little friendship going. And that's why I was at the earlier youth game, the UEFA Youth League game, when Spurs hit a club record 9-1 victory. That's the biggest margin of victory in that competition. Absolutely destroyed Slavia Prague. Williams-Barnett got 5 goals, also a club record in the competition. I think Troy Parrott got 4. And Teenan Thompson got a hat-trick. And both of them, at one point, at least, celebrated a goal by doing the Xavi phone celebration. And that is because of that, because they've got this kind of little, nice little relationship going where he's kind of just involved them and just being a more experienced player. It's mad. He's only 22, but he is still 5 years older than them. They're both 17 years old, half a decade older. So I just thought that was really nice that he's come in, and this is the thing. He's such an experienced 22-year-old. You know, he's come through at Barcelona. Sorry, he's come through Barcelona, then made his senior steps at PSG and RB Leipzig and all of this. So he's very experienced. And actually, going back very quickly to the Youth League game, there was some lovely football. Wayne Burnett had him playing some great football. James Rousewell scored the last goal. I was kind of like making double figures, no mercy. Like, there is no mercy in this dojo. But they couldn't. They finished on 9-1. And even the Slavia goal was really nice. But Williams-Barnett and Callum Olasese, the captain, who got 3 assists on the day, they were both whisked away, showered, put in their suits, and on the bench for the later first team game as well. They didn't come on. It was a little bit like, I'll bring him on kind of thing. It was not Luca but Lucas that came on as the final sub, Lucas Bergvall. Look, especially Luca. I've got really high hopes for Tottenham Thompson. I think he's terrific. He's such an exciting young player. There's a few in that group. They've got some real talents. You've got Jun'ai Byfield, who we'll talk about right at the end of this video, and Malachi Hardy's very good as well. There's some real good ones, George Feeney I like as well, little bits and pieces I've seen of him. Callum Olasese, it kind of feels like he's playing in the wrong age group whenever I see him play. He just feels more physically dominant and stronger than everyone he's playing with. But look, for Williams-Barnett especially, that Champions League debut is coming. It is absolutely on its way at some point. He played, was it Doncaster, wasn't it? He made his debut in the Carabao Cup. He's got the potential to be one of Spurs' brightest homegrown players in years. I mean, just, if you get a chance and you haven't seen them, look at his 5 goals and the variety and the use of both feet. I mean, his free kick is phenomenal. It just curls right-footed, top right corner of the net. But there's so many moments when the defender just doesn't know what he's going to do. He looks like he's going to shoot and he just stops the ball dead. And then he uses his other foot to curl it into the net. He's a hell of a talent. And as always, with anyone of that age, the caveat has to be they've got to keep working hard. They've got to be very lucky to swerve away from injuries because, we've seen many a young player ruined by injury. And they've just got to listen and learn. And that's it. And I do think he could do a lot worse than kind of really studying Xavi in training because, I said in the last video, I think Thomas Frank called him a 24/7 pro because he is a guy with a really high work ethic. He's, like I said, you come through La Masia at Barcelona, you've got to be the best of your group. You've got to work incredibly hard. PSG, similar. We saw the PSG youngsters beat Spurs. They are the best of like the best of the best when it comes to those youth kind of lit teams. And then Leipzig, you've got to run there. So it's a place where they have the gegenpress. That they really work incredibly hard. So Xavi has had to learn all the different aspects. I think I said it in the last video, some of his quotes about it's great to be on the ball, but it's almost what you do off the ball as well, and your aggression and stuff. So I think for someone like young Luca to watch him, it's a perfect example. And yeah, just watch what he does in training and also what he does in matches, because I think Luca will play maybe slightly more advanced. He can kind of play as a false 9. He can play through the middle. He can also go out to the sides or as a number 10. And actually, Frank said of Xavi, talking about the way he worked, he said, I like his work ethic. For example, there was a great recovery run at 90 plus minutes when he just got all the way back, which is crucial for me, for us, for everyone to work very hard. I liked his overall performance. He built on the good game on Saturday. He produced again. Good link-up play, nice turns in the middle of the pitch, and he also got that acceleration to go past the player and open up the spaces. So yeah, I'd love to see kind of Luca follow that blueprint really, and hopefully that is the beauty of having these kind of experienced pros, even the younger new arrivals, taking an interest in the young players and trying to help them develop as well. He seems really popular, Xavi. You often see him in the behind-the-scenes stuff, kind of laughing and joking with various players, and I do think his multilingual ability helps him. I think he speaks about 4 or 5 languages, and he's got a relationship with Christian Romero. You often see them kind of Romero have his arm around him at some point, and Xavi can speak Spanish, obviously, because of his years at Barcelona as well. So that kind of came into play in one moment. I mean, just briefly on the goals, if you're not aware, David Zima, the Slavia player, headed in Romero's flick on from Porro's corner into his own net. And when I spoke earlier about the landmark, Tottenham's 100th Champions League goal. We were a bit like, feels like it should be more than that. But I guess they've been in it 7 seasons, because they're not talking European Cup, are you? You're talking about a bit like they did with the Premier League. It's like it only existed after Champions League became a thing. So maybe, I think it's 7, 8, 9 seasons. I can't remember. But yeah, 100th goal. Shame it had to be someone else scoring it, but there you go. And then after that, we had the first penalty incident where Archie Gray, beautiful ball. I think it's João Paulinho plays a quick free kick. Archie Gray pings a beautiful ball, inch perfect into the path of Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro tries to hit a low pass, and as he's doing so, it gets absolutely wiped out. Penalty given. Richarlison wants the ball. He picks it up. I think he missed Spurs' last one, didn't he? Was that against Copenhagen late on, I think? Xavi wanted to take it. In comes Romero, just has the ball, ignores both of them, and just goes and gives it to Kudus. And he fires it down the centre of the goal into the net. Sparked a beautiful celebration. We got Kudus is getting the stool, which obviously wasn't able to do the other day, but he was able to do it last night. And what I loved about it was that Richarlison, being Richarlison, grabs one as well, sits next to him. Jed Spence goes, I'm getting in on that, grabs one as well. And it was just, even Kudus found it so funny. It was just brilliant. And it looked almost like these guys sitting around at a pub, albeit on very small chairs. And all the other players kind of gathered around them. And I said in my tweet at the time, the photographers were kind of gathered around them down. I was like, that is going to make an iconic photo. It's going to be such a brilliant photo. And lo and behold, yes, this morning, some really cool photos of it. But kind of the point I was making originally about that is that Xavi wanted a penalty. When they got another penalty after Kolo Muani chested down the ball to Xavi, Xavi gets tripped in the box. I think Kolo Muani grabbed the ball, and it was a bit like, oh no, and Xavi was sort of going, wee, wee, wee. He does that. He's got this ability to look like a tantruming kind of teenager, or like a toddler. Whereas I don't think he is. I think it's just the way he kind of he says these things. So it's quite funny if you watch the footage back. It's him going, I want the ball, I want to take the penalty. And Romero just kind of grabs the side of his face and just goes like, just like pushes him away, but gives him the ball in his hands anyway. And then he takes the penalty. It was pretty close. The keeper, Jindrik Stanek, he got a hand to it, but could only help it into the bottom right corner. And I assumed that both those incidents were Romero going, you take the penalty. No, you take the penalty for this one. But actually, I kind of put it to Thomas Frank after. I was like, do you want your captain to be decisive in these moments and say that's who takes the penalty? And as part of his very kind of, not very short answers, I've dealt with Nuno, they're far shorter, but kind of slightly less flowing answers, let's say, free-floating perhaps. He made it very clear that it was not Romero choosing, and it was his list of penalty takers. He said it's clearly decided before, there was no problem, it was exactly how it should be. So I said, okay, so he's kind of like your enforcer, putting forward exactly what you want to happen. He was like, yeah. I don't think there was, I don't know, he was just having a little bit of banter with Xavi, and I think it was more that. I was like, okay, all right, fine. And there were some good performances across the rest of the team. There weren't many that really stood out. For me, I think got top marks in my ratings were Xavi, Kudus, and Romero. I thought Romero was very good in everything he did. I thought Archie Gray was good again. Lovely to see him getting back-to-back starts in that midfield. I think it works quite nicely in he, and whether it's Paulinho or Bentancur, just kind of providing a little shield behind Xavi. I've said this, I think, in the past. I like the fact that it's like a 4-2-3-1. Xavi then can play centrally, and he will get back and tackle. He will work harder, as Thomas Frank said, but actually it's also, he's got that little base behind him. And what you do get with Archie Gray, as we saw with the Porro penalty, or Porro being fouled for the penalty, Archie Gray's got a beautiful pass in him. He really has. His technique is glorious, and he can pick out a pass. So if you've got someone like that, and also he makes these breaks into the box. There's a few times, I've said this before, that if people notice his runs, he would be getting that first goal for Tottenham. So I think what he brings you, as well as a sitter like Paulinho and Bentancur, Archie Gray is someone that will be box to box. He will be more than just a sitter. So you've kind of got this nice balance between one sitter, one box to box, and one box to box, and one playmaker. And obviously Bergvall can probably play that role as well. It kind of feels like Archie's having his little moment right now, which is great for him. He's worked hard to deserved it. Who else did well? I thought Vicario was pretty neat and tidy again. Did well from corners, was strong from them. Made those 4 saves. I wouldn't say any were like the most difficult saves he's ever made, but they were of a reasonable level that he had to make that and push them away from danger, which you can't kind of play down the need for that as well. His name was cheered before kickoff again, which was brilliant. Obviously, a second consecutive clean sheet for him. Do you know what? It was another big actually, it was mainly a standing ovation that came, which I wasn't expecting, and I was really pleasantly surprised by, for Ben Davies. Ben Davies came on in the 68th minute, first minutes of the season, and he just got this brilliant applause. And I think people just kind of suddenly remembered, like, this guy is an incredible servant to the club. This is his 11th year at the club. He is the club's longest serving player. And, they could need him in the next few games with the doggy out. He's going to be able to allow people to rotate. Maybe not the next couple because it starts to spread out slightly, but potentially into early January when the games come thick and fast again. And it was fitting, of course, it's Sonny's best mate. And yeah, I just thought it was really lovely. I was a bit like, oh, what? I was not expecting that. What a great crowd. Having not been such a great crowd at times because of their dissatisfaction. Like I said, it's amazing what a bit of attacking football and a positive scoreline can do. But yeah, the only negative of the night, which I kind of touched on right at the start or hinted at, was Mickey van der Ven. A very needless throwing back of his elbow into Moimir Chittel's face. I'm hoping that's how you say it. As he was running away from him. Didn't need to do it at all. And that booking rules him out of the Dortmund home game now because he got the accumulation of yellow cards. Thomas Frank was furious. And he was on touch. He was going like this. Just use your brain, think about it or whatever. I don't know what it was meant to be. But he was really unhappy. And I asked him about that, kind of saying, like, you looked really frustrated about it. That kind of annoy you. I think he misunderstood it. I think he thought I was saying that Mickey van der Ven was frustrated. And he said, yeah, which I understand, of course, but that was the minor negative thing. It is what it is. And that was it again. And look, he did give some longer answers in the press conference, but I just felt, and I said this before, I do feel like sometimes his press conferences are his way of almost promoting himself and his version of Tottenham Hotspur. And I don't always feel he does that as well as he probably could. And look, some people don't believe that's that important. And Nuno certainly did not. And he's had a very good career for himself in not really caring about the media in any way. But I do think having that relationship with the fans through what you say is quite important as well. But yeah, so Van der Ven can't play against Dortmund. I think Spurs I think they're in 9th place, aren't they, in the big league? Probably need to win that and the away game at Frankfurt if they're going to stand a chance of getting in that top 8 and qualifying without needing the playoff round. They're pretty much all but through to knockout stages, so that's cool. I think, some of the more pessimistic among us may have thought that, Spurs back in the Champions League haven't strengthened enough. Are they even going to make it through? But they have. It does go all the way down to 24th place, but hopefully it would have to be something spectacular set of results. It may even be mathematically. There's so many teams below them from 9 to 24 that it can't actually happen anyway. One man who can potentially play against Dortmund is Matisse Tell, because Spurs have used this UEFA rule that allows a team to bring in a squad substitute if a player has been ill or injured for 60 days. It can only be done up until the 6th game, which is the Slavia game. So they've been able to bring him in now. they've kind of had to jiggle about a bit because you can't normally change a association trained player for a non-locally trained player. You might remember this from all my homegrown player chats. But what Spurs have done, because they've got the 4 required association players they need in Jed Spence, Archie Gray, Ben Davies and Brendan Johnson, technically Dominic Solanke can go into the main group instead of the association players, which then allows him to be replaced by Tell. And then it states the rules that Solanke can come straight back in. I think he kind of has to come straight back in. I think, unless it might be the coach can decide whether or not he does. And he can come straight back in when he is back at fitness. It's a very stringent thing to prove they're injured. They've got to show all these documents and medical stuff as well. On Solanke, Thomas Frank has made it very clear he has not had a setback. And from what I understand, I know there's been some fan fears about him being out for another couple of months. From what I understand, that's not the case. So, fingers crossed, it is Spurs and it is an injury. But fingers crossed, from what I'm hearing, it's not going to be that length of time. We'll see. Oh my goodness. There's been so many over the years, haven't there? So he was asked, Thomas Frank, about has he had a setback? He said no. It was just an opportunity to get Tell in, which is nice to have that opportunity, and we can change it back if we want to do that. As I understand it, he was asked, why didn't you do it before this date? And he said, as I understand it, it's something with 60 days. An injured player needs to be injured for 60 days. It's relatively complicated, so it's not like I could have done it 3 games ago. Plus, it's also depending on how long Dom will be out and so on. So that's why there was an opening now that we could do it and we can change it again. So that was good. We were trying to work this out. It depends when they're doing it from the 60 days, because I think surely he could have been in an earlier round Tell. I just wonder if they weren't entirely sure that they could make the change, whether they wondered about Dom being a association trained player and whether that was an issue, and they've kind of figured out, actually we are able to jig it around. Could be doing them a huge disservice. It might be that it's 60 days since that minor procedure he had. It was right at the start of October, so maybe that is the case. But look, it's a great opportunity for Tell to have him back in. I should stress as well, every press conference we get people saying, ask about Solanke, or why didn't you ask about Solanke, or what's happened to Kulusevski? I asked about Kulusevski the other day. Look, actually, to explain this first. So Thomas Frank, I think this is a problem, is that not everyone sees every press conference. So they're not aware of what Thomas Frank has said. Thomas Frank has made it very clear to us that he will no longer speak about Solanke or Kulusevski and their timeframes until they are ready to come back. He's been very clear. If you ask him about them, you get exactly that. And that is despite us as reporters and media and the fans being incredibly frustrated around the mystery that surrounds them both. If anyone watched the press conference on Monday ahead of last night's game, I went to ridiculous lengths of talking about Decky's Instagram post, where he was in somewhere, looked Scandinavian, in a very cold lake at 10 o'clock at night, so the caption said, having a dip. It was snowing, so it was not England. And I kind of said to Thomas Frank some awkward question like, so Decky seems to be somewhere in a lake in a foreign country. Is he at the stage where he's allowed to have a different environment, to give him a change of scenery? Because normally when they're at that stage, it kind of means they're not very close to coming back. And I was trying to get him to go along those lines, and he kind of said, like, I have said, his robotic thing, I have said that I will not speak about them till they are ready. He said, but yes, we have a plan for everything, I think, essentially is what he said. And then I think it was Matt Very from the Standard asked him yesterday, will Dominic Solanke be back for the Frankfurt match on January 28th, the last game? And Thomas Frank said, ready yourselves. I think I've said before that as soon as he's ready and available, then I will say when he's ready. So I know people seem to get really frustrated with us. It's like, we're asking. He is not playing ball. I'm sure there are many reasons why he can't. There's there's the thing that always kind of comes into play is patient confidentiality. There's medical things that players might not want out there. But yes, Decky's teasing us with moonlight dips in snowy lakes. Solanke was there, like I said last night. But yeah, let's see when it all comes back. And like I said, at least Tell gets to play now. That's been a frustration, hasn't it? I do feel like he should have had more minutes because I do feel I like Odegaard. I think he's got a hell of a lot of ability. But for me, Tell is the more direct, strong player. And I do feel like when he comes on, he makes an impact. And last night he came on, showed a lovely little bit of fast feet, had a low shot at goal that the keeper pushed away. Actually went to Pat Matasar, who hit the follow-up, and a bit like Richarlison shot, somehow the keeper managed to get a body part to it. Odegaard had started the game really well. Like I said, that 35 seconds in, really nice bit of dribbling. He had another really good curling shot that, again, the keeper saved really well. But I do feel like with Odegaard, he's more likely to drift out of a game, and he did that last night in between those like kind of two bookend moments. And Thomas Frank agreed, and I think it was the man-to-man coverage that kind of did for him. He couldn't find a way out of it. And he said, for Wilson, he's a young player. He no doubt learned a lot from this game today. I agree. I think it was a great action after 30 seconds where he got the better of his opponent. Then I think the second half, he had another good chance, a good finish, but a great save from the keeper. But then there's definitely a situation, as you said, where he needed to protect the ball better and handle the aggressive pressure. But overall, again, a positive performance from the team. Yes, they're beating teams they should beat, but they weren't doing that. And they're doing it at home. I think that's all you can do. Start beating the teams in front of you, and then you start to shift things back in your favour. After this run of so many games in a short space of time, Thomas Frank has given the players the next 2 days off. Wednesday and Thursday. They'll be back in Friday at Hotspur Way to start preparing for the game at Forest. Obviously, it will be a physical battle against Sean Dyche's team at the City Ground. Then there's a little chance to breathe. They've got 6 days before the home game against Liverpool, and then 8 from that until the derby at Crystal Palace. Obviously, we've got a much less cluttered festive schedule this time around. It is only a temporary reprieve. As I said, January is chaos again. It starts to go back to every midweek. It's every 3-4 days. They haven't obviously got the FA Cup game at home against Aston Villa is going to be slotted in there as well. I think there's maybe only 1 week where there's not a midweek match in January at the moment. So, yeah, it is going to be breathless. And look, it could be a period where hopefully we see some faces back in the change room that we haven't seen this season. Hopefully, expectedly, that's not even really the word I was looking for. There should be new faces in the transfer window. You know, we know the Lewis family are set to back the club. That's been the promise. So we're all keeping our eyes keenly trained on what's going to happen. I mean, I think we can probably all agree they need some more attacking help as well. Personally, as I've said a million times before the season started, I would like to see another left back come in. It might be that Ben Davies heads off maybe in this window. He might decide he wants to play some minutes, and it might mean a left back is definitely then needed. Or he might just leave for a free in the summer. But yeah, I mean, definitely left back. I mean, let me know in the comments, where do you think they need, new faces? For me, it depends. If Solanke's back, then suddenly you do have Solanke, Kalumwani, and Richarlison. You've got a lot of attacking options in that regard. But I do think I would still like to see a left winger come in. There's a few places they could yet improve that squad, and maybe another centre back. Really, obviously, very wary of blocking the pathways, and this is another thing that's quite right as well. I've bigged up Luca Williams-Barnett. Obviously only 17 years old, and then I'm calling for, let's say, other attacking midfielders to come in. And it is this really awkward thing of you don't want to block these people. And you've got Mikey Moore as well. Mikey Moore's starting to find his feet at Rangers, scored 2 lovely goals against Kilmarnock this week, or the weekend. Really nice effort. So he's now starting to develop and progress, and he was a huge talent, kind of almost out of sight, out of mind, and people forget that he could come back and be a special talent as well. He's playing this free role for Rangers now, on the Danny role of kind of off the left and coming in the field, and it's kind of how he would probably play at Spurs. So maybe, I'm saying about seeing another left winger come in, I'm talking rubbish, because maybe I'd like to see these players not have their pathway blocked. But then you need results now. What an industry. What an industry. We'll see. Let me know, like I said, what you want to see in the January window. Might be that some people want Vuskovic back. Vuskovic, by the way, what a goal he scored at the weekend for Hamburg. A back heeled effort on the volley around another player. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's incredible. Spurs might be tempted to bring him back, but I don't think they will, because I think he's having such a good season of development there. It would be kind of mad to bring him back. But yeah, look, felt like a week where we kind of jolted back in the right direction, kicked back by the boots of a Dutchman and a Ghanaian, let's say, in the right direction. And then they kind of need to kind of just harness that momentum, I guess, and surge into 2026. I don't mean Serge Aurier. I mean surge as a team into that. Vuskovic and White's remind me, I need to do a loan kind of roundup at some point and see how everyone's doing. Just before I go, kind of hinted it earlier, Jun'ai Byfield signed his first professional contract with the club. Very talented player. He's only just turned 17 on Saturday. Been with Spurs since he's 8. He is Spurs through and through. Bit regular for the under-21s, even though, like I said, he was 16 a week ago. It's absolutely mad. And yeah, he was captain, wasn't he? I think for the under-17 Premier League Cup win as well. He's a hell of a talent. He's very good. I was watching him, like I said, yesterday in the youth game. I think it was him back in the team after injury. And he's just got this kind of calmness and assuredness about the way he plays. And look, he's been on the bench as a 16-year-old, I think under Frank as well as Postecoglou, which says everything about where he's at. So hopefully he continues to develop. Again, there's me saying bring in another centre-back. It's very difficult. I guess the problem is they're not ready quite yet. But yeah, no, I'm delighted for Jun'ai and his family as well. I remember seeing them out on the flight, I can't remember, it was to or from the Super Cup, and he was in the squad, and it was like, I couldn't help but just say to him, like, you must be so proud. It's so cool. He's 16 years old, and he is going to play PSG in a European final. Well, he's not going to play, but he's going as part of the travelling squad. It's just incredible. And they were so proud of him, and they were lovely people. And I think a lot of this crop of youngsters, you can kind of tell. We have this funny little bit after a press conference when often the under-18s, under-21s come out into the reception area, which is just outside the press conference room. And we get to see them interacting and just enjoying them little time with each other after their day is done. And they all just seem like really good kids. And I think that comes from, their families and the way they're raised and stuff. Because trust me, I've seen some kids coming through over the years that have not been that way. And you can kind of tell. And like Luca's great fun. Luca, you'll often hear him. He's quite a voice out there, and sometimes he'll kind of look and he'll say hello to like the people as we're writing up our stuff after the press conference. He's a confident young man, and they're a good group. And like I said, Jun'ai comes from a good family. Certainly from my chat with them on the way to or coming back. I think it was coming back from the Super Cup. I think it was on the way back. But it's lovely to see. Hopefully the next generation coming through the ranks, because Spurs have not been good enough about getting their homegrown players into their team, and that is why they have these problems with the squad, which is why Tel had to be left out in the first place. If we could have a future where the likes of Jun'ai, of Luca, of Tienan, Malachi, players like that are coming through into the team, and many more talents in that side come through. That's the way football clubs should be, really, and Tottenham haven't been good enough about it in recent years. So let's see where that heads. Right, time to head off. I've spoken more than enough at you. You've had to listen to my waffle. Time to go. Next video will probably be late on Sunday. Maybe we'll go Monday morning. We'll see how it all works. I have to travel back, do a load of work on the train back from Nottingham, but I will do my best, my very best. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. We've got the press conference on Friday afternoon, so keep an eye out from everything from that. And yeah, hopefully Spurs can go to Forest, who, haven't been the greatest form, and get something there, and then keep going. And then Liverpool haven't been particularly great, and it snowballs, doesn't it? Don't halt that momentum just before it's really getting going. It'd be lovely, Tottenham. Please don't be Dr. Tottenham to them both. Time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.